Hello, 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 Transurfer and Transurfing Curious. My name is Renee Garcia, guys, and this is Transurfing TV. And today on Transurfing TV, this is my first day back filming after my second bout of COVID. I can honestly say I don't think I know anyone in my layer of reality that has had COVID twice. So I guess now I would sort of consider myself a COVID connoisseur, if you will. Not funny jokes. But seriously, I did much prefer this second flavor of COVID. It had really nice notes of delirium and confusion, and not so much coughing and congestion, which was kind of like a delightful treat. But in all seriousness, I think I'm feeling better. Hopefully I can get through this video. I still feel a little bit loopy. I attempted to film this video the other day and it didn't turn out so well. So we will see how it goes today. Frequency and manifestation. I've really been debating if I was going to give this lesson or not, because I'm going to be giving away some of my top tips and tricks for evolving your frequency, which definitely is like the secret key to getting what it is that you want in your reality, stuff that you don't have. And these are some of my top secret sort of bits of information that I give in my Mo Money course. So I was like, yeah, should I give it away for free? But then I kind of realized, for those of you that are following this series, without understanding this stuff, it's gonna be kind of like shooting blanks or taking shots in the dark. This is so pertinent to your manifestation or materialization or reality creation practice that without this knowledge, you're not really gonna, you can go places, but it's gonna be energetically exhaustive, ineffective, inefficient. And as I suggested in my very first video of this series, it's kind of like, when you're not resonating at the frequency of what it is that you want, you kind of like trying to pull something onto your layer of reality when the frequencies don't match. They don't match up. So it's sort of like you're trying to attract something which you cannot attract. And oftentimes it's more like you're trying to attract it, but you're repelling it. This is exactly why people that win the lottery that are not ready for that level of wealth, it sort of slips through their fingers and disappears, and they wind up in the same place as where they started, because exactly what I'm going to be talking about today. So before I get started on all of this, remember to like this video and subscribe to this channel, and comment below any questions or comments. Join us on the Facebook group, the International Transurfing Institute Facebook group. Follow me on Instagram, reality_transurfing, and Reality 2.0 and Tufty 2.0 down below. Mo Money, the deluxe edition, which I give away a bunch of stuff just like this lesson today. We're getting ready to drop that around the 1st of the month. Anyone that is enrolled in Reality 2.0 is going to get this entirely for free. So it's definitely a good value. But yeah, I will definitely let you know when that launches the second time. But for now, if you have interest in Reality 2.0, the details are below. Okay, so frequency and manifestation. This is something that I figured out, luckily, at a younger age. I don't know how I gained these insights, and I don't know why this knowledge came to me. Once I did discover reality transurfing, I very clearly saw exactly what it was that I was doing and why it was working, and then also fusing what I was doing previously to transurfing with the transurfing knowledge helped me to really up my game and take everything to the next level. But for now, I'm going to talk about how I evolved my frequency pre-reality transurfing to give you a very, very practical example. And I want to explain first off that what I'm going to be talking about today is definitely like not a one size fits all. My understanding or my ideas or belief about wealth may be different from yours, right? I'm a little bit, I'll admit, I'm a little bit into like opulence. I like a lot of the finer things in life. Well, I used to like a lot of the finer things in life. Now my interest has shifted a little bit over to more of like the creative realm. But when I was younger, especially in my 30s, my God, I really aspired to be around super, super luxury stuff. And I was successful at this. I was absolutely successful at this. And I was successful at this for exactly the reasons that I'm going to relate to you now. However, you might have a different idea of wealth. Maybe your ideal of wealth is more of like a thriving 401k or savings in the bank or freedom to, do whatever you want in your life rather than material items like mine. So you're going to have to sort of interpret what I'm going to say in whatever way matches up with your idea of wealth, and then do that in your own way, if that makes sense. Maybe it'll make more sense once I describe to you what it was that I started to do. So for those of you that don't know, I grew up poverty environment, very, very lower middle class. We lived in a trailer park. We always bought the cheapest everything, right? The cheapest furniture, the cheapest food, the cheapest clothes, the cheapest cars. Again, we lived in a mobile home. So my frequency was low in regards to financial wealth and material stuff. My standards were very low. And I realized when I was probably in about my mid-20s that, I was struggling so much financially. I didn't have any money. I didn't have a means to provide for myself. I had a ton of debt. I was very much existing on this poverty level or layer of reality. But I was exposed to some nicer stuff. I lived in Los Angeles from my early 20s. And obviously when you live in LA, you see nice things, right? Fancy cars and jewelry and luxury goods and, things of higher quality. And I recognized these things. And I also recognized the difference in frequency. I don't have another way really to explain it. I acknowledged that my frequency was super low and these other things were resonating at a higher frequency. So I knew there was a gap there and I had to go about closing that gap. So the insights that I got were that I needed to put myself into the environment where these things were abundant and they were normal. They were normal, and stop viewing these things as something always out of reach or something intended for somebody else and not me, or something that I could never have, right? I was going to have to evolve my frequency by placing myself around these things more and more frequently. And that's what I started to do. So how I did this exactly Well, first of all, I had to go about tackling some of my limiting beliefs. As I just suggested, I had to really stop with this thinking that those things are intended for other people, but not intended for me. And how I did this was I just started to pretend that I was at the same level as the people that had the opportunity to actually have these things. Now, at first, and this is very much in line with the Tufte concepts, acting as if, right? Fulfilling that role within each frame as the frames moved along. And sure enough, eventually I had all this stuff, right? I had all this stuff. But you don't just jump from here to here, right? You don't just exist on poverty level layer of reality and then decide like, okay, I want to be up here and make that jump. It is like a snowball effect or a spiral upward to those higher levels of reality, but you got to start somewhere. So how I started, I would throw myself into environments where the presence of what it was that I wanted existed abundantly and act as though I absolutely belonged there. So I first started doing this by simply going into luxury stores and trying things on. I would go into Cartier, 25, 26 years old, with zero money in my bank account, a whole lot of debt, no way to ever own anything that was in that store. I would walk in there and I would assume the role of a person that was able to actually own some of those things. So I would go in and I would ask the sales representatives to show me things, and I would try the stuff on, and I would act as though I was like a legit buyer, which I absolutely was not. And again, as Vadim Zeland suggests in Reality Transurfing Steps 1 through 5, that it isn't about making things appear in our reality. It's about moving ourselves to that version of reality where the presence of that thing is more likely, right? It's the probability of it is higher. So I started to do this in a lot of different ways. I was hanging out at the marina around big boats, and I was putting myself into environments where people were talking about higher levels of wealth and doing business and luxury things. And I was slowly, over the period of a few years, evolving my frequency so I actually matched up with that layer of reality where all that stuff did exist, and I had access to it more abundantly. Now, obviously, I had to do something to get the stuff, right? Like I had to create a business, and it's kind of interesting how the whole story actually played out. I would do exactly as I suggested, go into these fancy jewelry stores and try stuff on. And at the same time, I started my business, my first business, which was the jewelry business. So this provided me the means to actually materialize the stuff that I was exposing myself to and getting into resonating with the frequency of that exact material stuff. So I did that, and at the same time I started my business, and sure enough, this stuff started to really exponentially increase in my layer of reality. It became my business, it became my passion, and I grew my little empire from this seed of doing this practice. So what I'm going to suggest to you today, and I know for some of you, this might feel a little daunting or overwhelming, like what what exactly do I do? How do I do what she's talking about in my own way, in my layer of reality? So what I'm going to suggest to you is this. Really sit down with yourself and figure out exactly what it is that you want. Don't just throw out ambiguous desires to your layer of reality. This is you just chasing a dangling carrot. Well, I want to be richer. Well, I want to have more money. Well, I want to be able to afford nice things. This is too ambiguous. What is it that you really, really, really want? Do you want a bigger house? Do you want a fancy car? Now, again, all this stuff, material stuff, this isn't my thing anymore. My thing now is about creativity, trying to educate people about reality transurfing. This is really what I value in my life. But of course, as we move through this series about manifestation, I understand a lot of you are probably still interested in manifesting the material stuff. So sit down and actually quantify it to yourself, the volume of what it is that you want, first off, specifically. Is it more money? Is it stuff like jewelry and cars and houses or trips or whatever it is? And sit down and really lay it out of what it is that you want. Then start to consider how you can surround yourself in that thing a little bit more starting today. Now, again, I would go into the Cartier store, but I wasn't actually walking away with the stuff. I had no real intention in taking those items with me into my life. It was all about resonating at the frequency and expanding the limits of my comfort zone to incorporate what it was that I wanted exactly, so I could go about taking action, and that action would be meaningful and produce what it was that I intended to have in the layer of reality that I had elevated to, if that makes sense. I know this is a mouthful. So start today by figuring out what it is exactly that you want to materialize, and then figure out a way that you can put yourself into the environment where the presence of that thing exists more abundantly, and outer intention will sort of start to help with the rest. So this could be throwing yourself into some higher social circles. I know this is going to sound wild, but maybe like getting a membership to a country club, or going and test driving a few fancy cars, going and touring homes, higher and better things, surrounding yourself with the higher frequency stuff so it becomes part of your set and decorations rather than some distant thing that you view as being for others and not for you. So I know this is kind of like one little piece of frequency and manifestation. It really, really is. Frequency is complex and a comprehensive part of a reality creation practice. But this part in particular is really, really valuable, and it's something that you can start doing today to help you sort of break down some of that stuff, keeping you from incorporating what it is you intend to have into your layer of reality right now, therefore evolving your frequency so you can elevate to a higher level of reality where you can actually have that stuff rather than you just simply trying to pull it onto your layer of reality right now. Any questions, definitely ask below, and I will do my best to answer, because I know this is a meaty subject, and I definitely want it to be clear for those of you that have been following this series. So let me know your thoughts and questions, everybody, and thank you for watching this video. Have a good day, guys. Bye.